Somewhat related to Freed Hardeman look tired this morning. It's because they are. It was a long weekend for a lot of folks. I know we got a few people who were visiting with us, will be a part of it. One of those is Kyle Butt, and he is with us this morning. I will do more of a formal introduction for him coming up this before our main or for our worship service today. The one story, quick story I want to tell, it is funny to me that when I'm trying to get speakers and I'm thinking about and reaching out to people and seeing who's available, a lot of times they're speakers and it's like, well, I can speak in like 2054. I've got that weekend open, and it's really difficult to get, especially people who are well known within brotherhood for their works and what they do. And so I was talking, and I think I just made the comment in front of my son, Will. Man, I'd love to get like Kyle Butt or somebody up here, but I'm sure he's booked out to like 2043 or 2053 or whatever. And Will said, well, I can call him. Do what? You can call him. Yeah, I mean, I think I can call him, get him, and see if he's available. And I was like, tell you what, big boy, go for it. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, a few days later, he says, I think it's going to work. I was like, well, okay. That works out pretty good. For those of you who don't know Kyle, he is part of Apologetics Press. A lot of you have used his material and probably didn't even know that you were using his material. He is an extremely smart man and has done a lot of defending of the faith, especially if you've done much research on how you can trust the Bible. The Bible is put together, the books of the Bible, that how they're included and some that are not included. If you've ever done any, I'm not even going to say a deep dive, if you've done surface level look, you're going to find his name and you're going to find the work that he is doing. He has been in debates with different folks and defending the faith, and I know that I think it was the last one was an atheist. That was a big debate that you could easily go out and find if you research his name. You'll see just how intelligent he is. But for me personally, the favorite, I guess, next level is Kyle and I were not in school at the same time, but Will and Morgan and Luke, and y'all were the first group to go to Panama that's connected here. And Will started name dropping the people who were on the list, and he started going through. And when I realized all the guys that were a part of that, who were heading that up, the daddy in me was like, I don't know if this is a good idea to leave this country. But when I hear the good folks who were a part of what they were doing and the extra work they were doing, I was so thankful to hear names like Kyle and Eric and Josh Ketchum, who were a huge part of that work. And so I appreciate all that you're doing, not just for us, but also for the younger generation. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle Butt.
Most dangerous job in the congregation, you know. I mean, you can't make anybody happy with the thermostat. We had had a deacon over the thermostat, and he would be in the back, and somebody would be sitting under the vent and would come back and say, it is freezing in here. How can we get this a little bit warmer? He's like, I hear you. Let me see what I can do. And then somebody would be sitting in the back, not under the vent, and they'd say, it's burning up. We need to adjust this. So when the announcements were being made, he would kind of make a thing of walking up there and adjusting. And it was two just like this. And so afterward, the people would come back and say, man, thanks for changing that for me. You cooled it off. And he'd be like, hey, no problem. The other guy would say, hey, thanks for, making sure that was warmer, and no problem. Never even touched it. Just act like he changed it. And so I know how that goes, Brooks. I see what you got going there. Heavy burden. Somebody's got to bear it, though. Will and Morgan got to meet as we did a trip to Panama. Just got back from that trip. Was the third trip. It was awesome. Really had a great time getting to know them. They just did amazing, good work. You guys would have been so proud of the work that they did over there, the evangelism that they did, and the manual labor and the teaching of the kids' classes and just all kinds of stuff. And just a very, very special couple to me, really coming back off of that trip, just seeing the young people that we've got in the church, the enthusiasm that they have for the Lord's work, for the expansion of the Lord's kingdom. And I just thought, sometimes as oh, you're a generation above or 2 generations above, you think, what's going to happen to the church? Where's the church going to be in 20 years? What's going to be the case of the strength of the biblical knowledge and of the enthusiasm and what I saw and have seen on those last 3 trips is just an outstanding dedication to the Lord's work from young people who are doing this not prompted by the generation above them, but because they feel an internal drive to spread the Lord's work and the Lord's kingdom. And it's exciting to see. My wife, Bethany, is with us, and my youngest son, Reed, is with us. He is a junior in high school in Columbia, and always am excited when Bethany gets to come with me. Sometimes she doesn't. Brother Bobby's right. The last week, I've just been sending out emails that say, hey, I'm booked up so many years in advance, I can't even take anymore. But when Will called, I thought, yeah, you know what? We're gonna make an exception because I love what is going on in their life, and I love what is going on in the Lord's church all over the country. And so, I don't know if you've seen this email. It's a fascinating email. It comes to you. It's a 40-second video. It says, watch this video and count how many times the people in white shirts pass the basketball. And so you flip on the video, you press play, you watch it, and you're concentrating very closely on the people in white shirts passing the basketball. And at the end of it, it says, if you counted 14, you're correct. Now, when I get some kind of quiz or game, I want to win it or make the highest score on it. And so I'm counting, and it says, if you counted 14, you're correct. And I'm like, yes, I nailed it. And then it says, did you see the gorilla? Okay, 50 out of 100 people, when they're asked, did you see the gorilla? I was one of these 50, have no concept of what the statement even means. It says then, go back and watch the video again and look for the gorilla. Now, it's the same video. It hasn't changed at all, same 40-second video. You press play, and now you're watching for a gorilla. Okay, here's what happens. A guy that is about 6 feet tall in a big gorilla suit walks very slowly through all the people passing the basketball, stands in front of the camera, looks straight at you, beats his chest like a gorilla would. Now, when you're told to look for the gorilla, you don't see anything else. I mean, the basketball now is in the background. Once you realize that there is a gorilla in the scene, you can't miss him. But 50% of the people who watch the video the first time never see the gorilla. Let me ask you a question. How is it that you can watch a 40-second video with a 6-foot gorilla in it who walks slowly across and stands dead center in front of the camera and you not even see that? Well, you're missing the thing that's right in front of you. Do you think we sometimes miss the thing that's right in front of us because we're so busy looking at other things? There is a tragic story of a young man who was called to go to the South Sudan. His name was Kevin Carter, and he was a photographer, and his job was to document the effects of the drought and famine in South Sudan. And so he does that. He goes down with several other photographers, and he is at this village right outside of this main area, and there is a place that's set up for the people in the area to come and to get food and water, but it's quite a journey for some of them. And he is on the main thoroughfare, the kind of main road, but then he hears something scratching off behind the bushes. And he goes to the other side of those bushes, and he sees a child that is so emaciated and starved, you can count every rib, every bone in the child's body. The child cannot walk, does not have the energy or the strength because of the famine and how famished this child is. So the child is laying on the ground trying to pull itself forward. But behind it, there's a vulture. And Kevin looks at the scene and thinks, wouldn't it be amazing if that vulture spread its wings out and I got a picture of this vulture behind this starving child? And so he waits for about 20 minutes for the scene to unfold, to try to take this picture. The vulture never does spread its wings out like Kevin wants it to. And so after about 20 minutes or so, he takes the picture, and then the horn sounds for them to all come back to the helicopter to go to another village. He gets back on that helicopter, brings the picture back home. This is, of course, back when you had to actually have that film run through a process of developing it. He develops the picture, wins the Pulitzer Prize for that year. I think it was 1991, might have been 93. I don't know the exact year, don't quote me. So he pulls the picture up and he starts showing it to people. Fascinating picture. It exhibits everything about the Sudan drought. But what was he missing? What happened to the kid? He was so busy trying to get the best picture he could, and he did. He succeeded in getting an amazing picture. And he realized that he had forgotten to focus on the main point of life. And that was the people involved. Do you think we sometimes do that? And there's a fascinating word in the Bible. We translate the word compassion. It's a Greek word, and I don't mess with many Greek words because I don't know much about Greek, and I had a lot of it, and just enough to know that the New King James sounds pretty much like if I would try to translate it in Greek after 3 years of it, so I just stick with a good translation. But this word, the word is splagnetzomai. Now, the reason I remember it, I only remember a few. Splagnetzomai, because it looks like the word spaghetti if you were to look at it on paper, and it means a deep feeling in your intestines. That's what the Greek word originally means. In fact, in the Old King James, you see this translated the bowels of compassion. Okay, that word means a feeling that you have when you see the pain of another person that you almost can't even describe, you just feel it inside of you. Now, you start listening to that word and you think, well, why in the world would the Greeks say a deep feeling at the interior of your intestines? I mean, that seems odd. Well, does it really? What do we use to describe when we have a feeling that is very deep for the pain or the suffering or the emotional struggle of someone else? My stomach hurts, or my heart just broke for that person. You mean your heart broke? Your heart split in half for that person? Why in the world would you say that your heart broke? What's that got to, well, what you're trying to say, my heart just went out to that person. That's even a little bit more gruesome of a picture if you actually put it in. My heart went out to the person. What are you trying to say? Whatever's the deepest inside of my being that manages how I feel is doing something to me when I see that. Okay, that's the word compassion. And so I think maybe an illustration of that, if you were trying to illustrate that, you imagine a mother, maybe she is sitting out on the porch and she's got a 4-year-old, 3-year-old son, and he's playing on the little hill beside their house, and that hill might come down into a little driveway that's gravel. Maybe it's not paved yet. And so he's running down the hill, and she looks and she sees that he's running pretty fast down that hill. Looks like he might not be able to stop, and he hits that loose gravel and face first slams into that loose gravel with knees and hands and face. Now, how does that make her feel inside? You know, you can't even put it into words, really. It's just like, you can make the sound like, oh. But it's a feeling that you recognize the pain of another person. That's compassion. And want to do something to alleviate that pain. It's not enough to say, you know, there's one thing when you get on reels and you start watching people wreck on bikes and motorcycles, and they're trying to do some parkour and they jump from one building to another one and they don't land right. It's one thing to watch that and be entertained. It's another thing to say, ow, that hurt. What can I do to help your situation? That's compassion. When you read about Jesus having compassion, it means he is entering into the life of the person who's in pain or discomfort, and he's trying to fix or change their situation. Give you some examples. So he's been preaching for 3 days at least. An entire city or 2 or 3 has basically come out to him, villages, so much that there are 5,000 men, not counting women and children. You're thinking about 15,000 or so people, most likely, and many of them have been with him for 3 days. Do you know what happens when a group of people is sitting trying to listen to any speaker and they're hungry? You know what they kind of tell us in, hey, if you're going to speak to people, there are some things that need to be in place. They can't be ridiculously uncomfortable. Like if it's too hot, you'll have a hard time speaking to them. But if they're hungry, if you hadn't eaten anything for 3 days, and I was standing up here speaking to you about, I just started talking about how I like blueberry donuts, and I love a good sausage and cheese, egg and cheese, sausage biscuit. Now, I could go to my next point, and what are you left on? Donut. And so, in fact, some of you probably are still left on those donuts. And because, you hadn't eaten for 8 hours. And imagine you speaking to a group of people that have left their homes, and some of them have traveled quite a ways, and they walked, and they're here, and they hadn't had anything to eat for 3 days. And literally, it looks like some of them are going to pass out. Now, quick question. Does Jesus know what it feels like to be hungry? Oh, he went for 40 days. Now, here's what you're always going to learn about Jesus. The compassion of Jesus is because he's been there. Like, not only just been there, but he sees your 3 days and arrays you 27 or 37 days. He knows what you're going through. And so he's got this huge crowd, and the Bible says that he had compassion on them. He entered into their discomfort and realized these people need something that I can give them to change their situation. Now, after he feeds 5,000 people in one of the most amazing miracles that is recorded in the Bible, do you think those people sitting on the grass were in tune to what he was about to tell them in his next part of his sermon? Absolutely, positively. Why? Because they could tell he was willing to enter into their discomfort. He was willing to be a part of their life in a way that would help them realize he was thinking about them. You ever been in a speaking situation? I was looking at a little meme, and it was, I think, it was Andy Griffith, and he was sitting by his buddy, and the little caption is, there's a fine line between a boring sermon and a hostage situation. You ever been in a lesson? And I'm not even saying a sermon. Maybe like a in-service or some type of instructional something, and the person was just forcing you to be there and just kept talking and talking and talking and was not interesting at all. Don't be looking at Bob. Y'all don't be looking at Bobby. And you just felt like, why aren't you seeing what's happening in this group? Why are you continuing not to see us? Okay, here's what compassion is. When Jesus says to you and to the group, I see you. I feel what you're going through. I understand you. And I want you to know that. And so I see that you're having problems here with these 5,000 not being fed. So I'm going to feed you so you recognize that there's more to this connection than just me disseminating information. I see you as a person. Okay, so turn to Luke chapter 13. And we're going to see, I guess my favorite story in the Bible, maybe. Just in the last probably 5 years, when I started thinking about this concept, it is fascinating to me what happens. We're going to read this whole story. It starts in verse 10 of Luke chapter 13. And let's pick up there. Now, he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years and was bent over and could in no way raise herself up. But when Jesus saw her, he called her to him and said to her, "Woman, you're loose from your infirmity." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation, because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore come and be healed on them, and not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him and said, Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to the water? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan is bound, think of it, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath? And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were put to shame, and all the multitude rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Okay, you've got a scene. It's very much like a Sunday service. Maybe similar to this. 9:25 rolls around, 9:28 rolls around, 9:31 rolls around. Everybody's milling around. You've got things going on. Now, in this case, you would have someone that's in charge of the worship. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you had to arrange, make sure the worship was going to go right for everybody that was in the congregation that morning, but it's a pretty good task. I mean, you want to make sure you're singing the right songs that might go with the lesson. You want to make sure, oh, Brother so-and-so was supposed to say the prayer. He's not here. We need to get somebody else that'll do it. Who's doing the preaching? Okay, generally we try to nail that down up front, but what if he's running late? Then what are we going to do? You got a lot of things that you're trying to arrange. Now, generally speaking, the person who's arranging the things is the one that the congregation views as the spiritual leader. So the man who is in charge is the ruler of the synagogue. He is recognized communally as the leader of this religious organization, this group. And I would think in his mind, he had ways that he expected the morning to go. He was probably in his mind thinking, he probably had the sermon that morning too. And he was thinking, okay, we're going to get this reading done. Then we might sing this particular hymn. And then we'll have a time where and he had all the things going how he wanted them to go in his mind, which is no small mental burden. It's something that is, you want to make sure it gets right. Well, so then while it looks like things are milling around just before the service, this woman comes in who has been bent over for 18 years. And it's the Sabbath. On the Sabbath, there are really not supposed to be any interruptions to spiritual services, is what the bottom line is. There's not supposed to be any work. Nobody's going to get done and go plow their field that day. This is all about God. And so this woman comes in, and Jesus touches her, and it becomes a scene so that everybody's watching, and heals her, and she then stands straight up and glorifies God. But that wasn't part of the religious service that the leader of the synagogue had planned on. And now in my mind, here is what I see happening. He is aggravated because this isn't how he expected it to go. And so he feels like he needs to make a public announcement, but it doesn't need to be personally pointed, like you don't need to append the actual name, but everybody needs to know who he's talking about. I don't know if you've ever been in a congregation where that happened. It's very, very uncomfortable. So I envision him going to, I don't know if there's a wood platform, kind of like, in Ezra, there was a wooden platform that the person who read from the scripture stood on. Let's just say it was something like this. And I envision Jesus sitting about third row over here. And the leader of the synagogue, who's wanting to direct this message to Jesus, but not say his name, in a very stately and formal and probably very eloquent way, says, there are 6 days that men ought to work. Come and be healed on one of those. And just eyeballs Jesus, just gives him the hard stare. Okay, generally speaking, in a group of people where you have assigned leadership of a spiritual community to a person, if he says that to you, what's the response? I mean, you shrink down in that pew and you think, what have I done wrong? And we're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. You ever had somebody in the Alamo Church of Christ over the past 30 years when Bobby Rawson got up to preach, stood up in the middle of his sermon and yelled at him and called him a hypocrite? You ever had that happen? Not yet? Not yet, but Brooks is prepared in case. I mean, let brotherly love continue, brother. That's what I'm saying right here. Okay, if that happened, if that actually happened, if someone in your audience today stood up and said, hypocrite, I can't believe you said, do you think that would be news in Crockett County? I mean, people would be like, hey, what happened Sunday? Dude, the math teacher preacher down there, one of the guys stood up and called him a hypocrite in the middle of everybody. We didn't even know, we've never seen anything like that. Okay, when Jesus stands up and yells to this guy in a very firm voice, hypocrite. What was Jesus trying to do? What did he succeed at doing? He had everybody's attention. Just like if that happened here on a Sunday morning and the person you thought was the spiritual leader was just called a hypocrite by one of the by one of the congregants. Okay, and then Jesus spins it on him. And then this is how I see it happening. He looks at the guy and says, hypocrite. And then I see him looking at the rest of the audience and he says, which of you, having an ox or a donkey, didn't get up this morning and take it to water? Who watered their donkey this morning? Now, let me put it, if you have a house dog, who took their house dog out this morning? Yeah, every single person that's got a dog. Why? Because dogs don't know it's whatever day it's supposed to be. Dogs just know, hey, when the sun comes up, it's time for me to go out. Okay, what Jesus is saying is, you guys in this audience, every one of you took care of your ox, which is your tractor. That's what you use to plow your fields. And your donkey, which is your car. You're going to make sure those two things work, because if they're not taken care of, you don't have transportation and you don't have what you need to plow your fields. So when Jesus turns and says, which of you guys, who took their donkey out today to water? What's everybody sitting there thinking? I did. And then he says, now get this verse. I want you to see it yourself. Verse 13. Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham. Now, why does he say that? Okay, number one, she's just not just a person. She's a Jewish person. And a saved Jewish person. You took more care of your donkey than you're wanting to take of her this morning. And then watch what he said. Whom Satan has bound, think of it, for 18 years. You ever stop to think about what this woman has gone through for 18 years? I don't know if this has happened to you. It's happened to me a couple times. Your back ever gone out in a way that you wish it was more heroic the way it did go out, but it didn't? And it went out in I was sitting at a chair about 10 years ago and sneezed. That's it. Just a regular old sneeze. That's what I thought. It felt like somebody took a .45 caliber pistol, put it in the back two lumbar of my lower back and pulled the trigger twice. Could not move, could not stand up straight. I sat in that chair hunched over for several minutes and then flopped myself to the tile floor and laid there for 45 minutes, hoping that in 45 minutes something would change. Hardly changed at all for the next 2 weeks. You ever seen somebody with their back out, the moves that they try to make to get in a car and stuff? Oh, yeah, y'all do. Yeah, you're with me. Compassion here. We got you, bro. I feel you. All right, you can't bend over so you stay straight, but you got to get into places. And so like the move to get into a car when your back's out, okay, you just kind of move sideways, open the door, you got to stay straight and you watch your head. I mean, it changes the way you do everything. Going up steps, you got to make sure there's a rail, all kinds of stuff for 2 weeks. You ever had a physical inconvenience for longer than that? Maybe you broke a foot or a collarbone or something and you couldn't do the regular stuff. You couldn't drive for 6 weeks. And you thought, what do you think if you have a physical ailment that causes you a period of time of inconvenience? What are you looking forward to? Man, when I get this cast off, it's going to be awesome. Okay, for 6. What if your cast is for 18 years? Okay, this woman has never looked up straight for 18 years. When people talk to her, how does she introduce herself? There's hardly, you can't make eye contact. You know, reclining at a table like they did in the first century, she couldn't do that. She probably wasn't invited to many meals. She can't get on a donkey, most likely. She's got to walk everywhere. What did she see? What did she see that morning when she walked, most likely, to church, to the Sabbath center? Feet, animal manure, dirt. And that's what she's seen for 18 years. You ever thought about that? As you've read this story? I mean, we look at the ruler of the synagogue and think, why isn't he thinking about this woman? And yet we've read this story, and I read this story for 40 years and never once thought about what it'd be like to be hunched over, and now the text specifically says, and not able to raise herself at all. It wasn't like, okay, it was just more comfortable to be hunched over, and every now and then she could get up and talk to somebody straight up. No, she couldn't get up. And Jesus sees her and heals her. And then he says, and, I see him, there's not a podium he's banging on, but I see him where he says, think about it. What are you doing? You haven't even thought about this woman. You had all this stuff in your mind that you wanted to play out on the Sabbath, and the one thing, your job is people, getting people closer to God. Guess what? You missed the biggest opportunity in your life to do. To show an entire synagogue how when God touches somebody's life, they glorify God. That's what she did, remember? Okay, Jesus heals her, and the text says, and she glorified God. Isn't that what you're supposed to do in the synagogue? But he missed the point, didn't he? Can you believe this guy? I mean, what's he thinking? And yet we do that all the time, don't we? We walk in a bank, and we've got a list of things that we want done. And this is one of them on the list, and we need to go make this deposit and cash this check, and we need to get it done quick so we can go and run to the grocery. And we go into that bank, and we make our transaction, and we walk out. And somebody says, well, how was the teller today? The teller, I don't know, I'm cashing a check. Oh, yeah, the teller's the person. The teller's your real job. And my real job. What was she going through? How was her life? Did you make a connection with her so that maybe she would have an opportunity to get closer to God through your interaction with her, even if it was just a smile and a look in the eye and say, hey, I see you. How you doing today? Anything like that? Or was it just a transaction? Just, okay, we just need to get done with this so I can go on to the next thing. And you are an object to fulfill what I need done in this life. And when I get done with you, I can just go to the next thing I'm doing. Hard to live that way, isn't it? But that's the thing about Jesus. He never missed an opportunity to see a person. Do you feel like you take opportunities to see people? Now, let me just give you what I would think is the real psychological crux of this in a lot of ways. I don't think most of us are deviously uncaring about other people. You know why I think mainly we don't see people? Because we're busy and we're concentrating on other stuff. If somebody had told me, watch this video, where people were passing a basketball, they just said, watch the video. Do you think I'd have seen the gorilla? Sure. Just watch the video. But when they say watch it and count the times the people in white shirts pass the basketball, now I got a job. Now there's something to do. And I miss the big picture sometimes. Fascinatingly, they did some research on a college campus where they would invite some young people, you're talking 20, 25 years old, to come and take a test. And then they placed a guy who was kind of looked a little destitute on the way to the building where they were having this test, and made it where it looked like he was having chest pains and having a heart attack, or the first stages of it of some sort. And so the people come to take the test, and they're walking into the building. The guy is right there on the side. He's having chest pains, and he's moaning and making sounds like he's in pain. I think 100% of the people stopped to ask him how it was, to help him. Okay, great. Terrific. Then they changed it up a little bit. They changed it so that when you showed up to the first building, they said the test is not in this building, it's across campus, and you've only got 5 minutes to get there. And between that building and the other building, they put the guy who's having chest pain. Now, you have the same kinds of people. They're taking the same test, but they think they only got 5 minutes to get there. What do you think happens between them leaving that building and the 5 minutes of them getting to the next building as they pass this guy who's moaning and in pain? They don't love him any less than the other guys did to start out with, but no one stops. Why doesn't anybody stop? They got something to do. They're busy now. You know what Jesus never, ever did? He never let the busyness of life get in the way of his real job. What's your real job? People. When the lawyer came to Jesus and said, what's the greatest command? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then Jesus said, and the second one's like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And the text says the lawyer, wanting to justify himself, said, well, who is my neighbor? And Jesus tells the story of the very famous and familiar story to you of the Good Samaritan. But notice you had the priest and the Levite, and they walked by the guy because they didn't have compassion. They didn't have in their minds their real job on this planet. And that's to see other people. Now, here's what I love about the example of Jesus. Everybody in here, including myself, all of us, feel like there's something about us that other people just don't see. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't understand the debilitating arthritis that I deal with every day. You don't understand the burden of going to dialysis 3 times a week. You don't understand what it's like to try to keep up with 3 kids and then go to work and then try to make sure my house is clean and when my husband comes home. You don't understand what it's like to have a parent who is in a situation where you have to worry about their health all the time. Every one of us has something about our lives that as much as anybody else in the world loves us, we feel like goes unseen. Where are we going with that statement? Jesus sees you. He knows what you're going through. Jesus, of all the people in all the world who have ever lived on planet Earth, recognizes every single pain and discomfort and emotional struggle you have. And he says, I see you. I know who you are, and I know what you're going through. And if it's the case that I'm going to allow that to continue, I'm walking with you. The compassion of Jesus is ultimately his absolute understanding of every single person on the planet and his ability to show them, I see you. Now, sometimes the way that Jesus makes sure he takes care of other people is that his people adopt that same attitude and they go into the world and start looking with the eyes of Jesus. And they quit worrying about busyness, although, hey, stuff has to get done. But they remember their main job, and that is to see people. So let's, as the people of Christ, adopt the mind of Christ and walk out into a world and say, I see you, like Jesus does. Sure appreciate you being here this morning.